Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to, and we'll start with Mr. Kearns, but I'd really like to get the panel's input. You mentioned about re-energizing manufacturing and things. I think we all agree with that. The reality, though, is that we're in a 70% consumption, market right now. We're way top-heavy on financial services. We need to export a lot more goods and services, and yet, with the global economy the way it is, that's very difficult to do. If I remember right, I read an article by Ms. Barshevsky, the trade rep in the 90s, and she was talking about the fact that 17 nations, including the United States, had already started, the Buy America, the equivalent of that in their country, and that trade might be down as much as 10%. So, again, I'd like to hear your all's kind of take as to where we're going in the future and what the deal is.
Well, I think, may I go first?
Yes, sir.
If you take a look at the import penetration statistics of the U.S. market, they're really dramatic and they're worsening. That is, foreign countries and foreign companies' share of major industries, major industrial categories, sectors in the U.S. economy. So I think the first thing that we have to do is not so much worry about exports, but worry about retaking those percentages in our home market. We have the world's fastest market. It's the market we know the best. We don't have state-to-state regulations that confuse us. So let's make sure that we're the ones making the products here that Americans want and need.
So would you exclude other products in an effort to do that?
Well, I would certainly, there's the myth of the level playing field. And I went to Frankfurt as a commercial officer in 1977 in the Foreign Service. And so I've been doing this 32 years, and I haven't found a level playing field yet. And it's impossible for U.S. companies to compete against foreign VATs, foreign subsidies, foreign dumping, IP theft, and on and on and on, without strong government actions. So if it were up to me, I'd use Article 12 of the GATT, and I'd declare a balance of payments emergency, and I would put in tariffs. I would put in a border adjustable surcharge for currency manipulation. I think the time for talking to these foreign nations and trying to get them to agree over some series of years, to do what we want them to do, is impossible. The previous administration talked to the Chinese about increasing domestic demand and following a different model, and they were stiffed every time, a Treasury Secretary went to China. Right. So let's concentrate on our home market and take back a good percentage of that.
Ms. Birdsall.
Yeah, I'd just like to disagree with the thrust of what Mr. Kearns is saying. I think the issue is that we need to have a mechanism to ensure enhanced demand abroad. We have to have stimulus, not just in this country, but around the world. The fact is that China has done a relatively large stimulus package in order to increase domestic demand. The fact is that China, it is increasingly subject to the worry about the overall global imbalance. It is trying to find ways, given its political constraints, which are problematic, admittedly, to move away from an export-driven mercantilist approach. It is also true that the IMF was unable to discipline China on the foreign exchange side. It was equally unable to discipline the U.S. on its fiscal side. So we have a world in which it is absolutely critical that the U.S. retain its leadership in pushing for collective action that deals together with our allies and partners on these problems. If we start threatening here and there, we're going to do this, we are going to get ourselves into a big problem. We are the masters of the universe in terms of knowing how to exploit an open, global, liberal trading environment. And one part of that package has to be provision of collective insurance through institutions like the IMF and the World Bank, so that developing countries and the rising emerging markets don't go the mercantilist way, don't try to self-insure by accumulating reserves and doing all the saving so that we're having to do all the buying and borrowing. We absolutely have to retain the leadership we've had for 50 or 60 years in creating a system of collective insurance and appropriate collective action, bringing China into the global community on these financial issues.
Mr. Miller.
Thank you.
I also want to disagree strongly with Mr. Kearns. I think the kind of restrictive and protectionist measures that he's proposing would set back growth and productivity in the United States and around the world tremendously. He's talking about recreating a trading and commercial and production system that we might have had in the past, but the jobs that we need here in the United States are the jobs of the future, the jobs in new sectors, the newly created jobs that will happen in an open environment. So I think it would just be very tragic indeed to start to build walls around the U.S. economy and say, you other countries stay out, because that's going in the first instance to hurt American consumers tremendously, who are benefiting, the average family of four benefiting by about $10,000 each year due to the open trading environment in which we participate. So you're going to have that problem, and then you're also going to have the problem for U.S. manufacturers who depend on the imports of intermediate goods in their own manufacturing processes. And if we put tariffs on those goods coming into the country, then our manufacturers aren't going to be able to produce the finished products in a competitive way. Our productivity will go down, our wages will go down. It's going to be bad for Americans in every aspect.
The time of the gentleman has expired. I now recognize the gentleman from Virginia.
I thank the chair. And